spiritual at the same time. But he says, you don't fool a Jew. He knows what he's looking for. He knows that Messiah sign. He'll catch that just real quick. I never realized there was time in my life that I never realized what the rapture was, the millennium, or nothing like that. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, that's true.
And he sat down one day in a chair, turned backwards, and folded his arms and laid on the back of the chair, and explained that whole thing, just to the letter. Just made it so plain a little child could understood it. And I didn't even know, and I was thrilled to death to hear that. There's a lot of people that say, well, what is the rapture? What's the rapture? I said, I don't even know what that is. Some old people had asked me that. And I didn't have any way of knowing unless he told me. But he made it just where a little child could understand it.
Yesterday you spoke about when you were talking about your father, the prophet told you that the spirit of your father was in the room.
Yeah, he said it like this. He said, you can start talking about your loved ones. He said, for instance, your father. And the reason he said this is I had a service station. I got a news service station, a Gulf station, and I opened it up, from the very start, brand new. And he came over one night, and it was all lit up with fluorescent lights, and it was a real pretty station, And he was telling me how pretty the station was, and I said, well, there's only one thing I regret, Brother Branham. I said that my dad didn't see me in this, because he tried to help me get a station, before he passed away. And he kind of chuckled, and he said, oh, he does. He said he knows right where you're at, what you're doing, what you're saying all the time. He said, now don't you try to contact him. He said, if you do, then that's spiritualism, so you can't do that. But he knows what you're doing all the time. You talk about him, said he comes right in the room where you're at. He said, but you don't contact him. But he sees you and knows what's going on. That's quite a statement.
It is.
I wouldn't have believed that from anybody else.
That's the first time I hear.
I would have never believed that from anybody but Brother Branham. I just couldn't fathom that. But I believe since then I have sensed the presence of some of the people that have crossed over. Because he mentioned one time to some of us, we was talking, and he said, the closer we come down to the end, the more like spiritualism it's going to be. And I have a real good friend. I grew up with him in Kentucky, Charlie Cox. And Brother Branham was really one of Brother Branham's best friends, was Charlie. And he and I was just chums when we was just little kids. We would ride our bicycles together and everything. Brother Branham used to go down to his house and spend a lot of time with him and squirrel hunt. And then they'd sit around at night and he'd preach him a sermon, sitting around the table. And he was very, very fond of Charlie. And he was there, and Charlie said that there was a little bracelet hanging up on the chandelier there in the room. And said he made that go around and around, back and forth, and then he stopped it. The same thing I told you last night about he did in this, where he prayed for that lady with ruptured appendix. But Charlie told me, getting back to what I was going to say about Charlie, Charlie has a big garage, and he does a lot of mechanic and body work and stuff on vehicles. And a good friend of ours in the tabernacle, in fact, he took up kind of where I left off as a deacon in the church when I left the church. And he's working for Louisville Gas and Electric. And they had a terrible fire there one day, and he ran in to save this feller that was burning, and the break in the pipes, and he got burned up himself. And he was just a prince of a guy, just really a super nice guy. And Charlie said one night, he said, I wouldn't tell this to everybody, but he said, I know you'll believe it, and I'm going to tell you. But he said, one night I'd worked in the shop all day, and everybody else had all gone from the building. And he had a little service door like this, and the big door that raised the overhead door. And he said he just shut the big door and shut the little door and locked it. And he went to turn around to walk to the house. And this boy that got burned up said, "How you doing, Brother Charlie?" And he turned around to look to see him standing there, and he wasn't there. And he said, "I wouldn't tell that to everybody, but he said, I know you believe it." I said, "Yeah, I believe that. I sure do. I have no problem believing that at all." And this same boy and his wife died a short time after he did. They wasn't rare old people, it was kind of younger like. And the mother of this girl, this boy's wife, lived just joining them. Just, you could see the house, you know, and it's on the farm, but the house is real close together. And the two boys, teenage boys, there was their children, lived there in the house. And so she went up one day just to kind of help clean up the house and do the washing and whatever, you know, the grandmother, the mother of this daughter. Said when she walked in the basement, you enter into the basement and go up the steps up into the other part of the house. She said, she thought, well, them boys went off to work this morning, left the radio on. And she went up and the radio wasn't on. And it was Shirley and Johnny singing. You know, their voices were singing in the house there. And she thought it was radio, but went to the radio wasn't on. You know, that's hard to believe for some people, but I believe that. I don't believe that lady. She's not that kind of person who would store that. But I believe that if we could just fathom it, I don't know what it would take to bring Brother Branham back on the scene, but when that bride gets in position for that, I believe it'll bring him back on the scene. I believe it'll be just like it was when Abraham and Sarah was sitting out there under the oak tree. And Brother Branham said, "These three ordinary men come walking down the road." And he said 2 of them went on down into Sodom and preached the gospel which blinds people. He called that blinded people. And he said, but there was one of them that stayed with Abraham. Abraham went out and had Sarah to fix a sandwich, a glass of milk. He sat down there and eat with him, walked right out in midair and vanished. And that was just before Sarah and Abraham was turned back. He said from the time that Sarah and Abraham received that, there was never another miracle, never another healing took place. The very next morning they went on down into Korea, and that's when the king down there fell in love with Sarah, because she was fair, she's young again. And that showed that they was turned back, see, to their youth again. And I believe this third pull that Brother Branham spoke of so many times is the place, and it's the thing that he said would get it. He said, I knew all along that what I did before the people, that wasn't it. He said, if God permits, someday I'll tell you that wasn't it. It was only to make these others, their folly, be made known. But he said this third pull is the thing that will get it. And I was talking to him privately one time, just he and I was talking. He said this third pull is for the bride and the church, but to the total lost. There's 3 phases of it, see. And I asked him, because I knew this ministry had typed the ministry of the Lord, you know, right to the letter. I could just see every bit of it, step by step. You know, even to the amount of time he preached, he was here 33 years, you know. And God took him off of the scene. And it's just everything typed Christ to the letter, you know. And that's why that some wanted to worship him. They just thought he was. And I believe that this third phase, I asked him, I said, Brother Branham, what was Jesus' third pull? He said, preaching to the doomed. No way to be saved, but they got to have the message preached to them. See, they done crossed the line between mercy and judgment, but they still got to have a message preached to them. And I seen this message, souls that are in prison now. Have you heard that message?
Yes.
See, he asked the question on there, he said, I hope with all that's within me that it's not, for I got children. But he said, if it's not, it will be. But he said, in other words, Brother Billy Paul showed me his book of notes, where he'd have notes on when he preached his message. And on that message, right underneath, the title of that message was Souls That Are in Prison Now. He drew 3 little lines like that under the word now. Striking, you think, well, where does that leave me? It's frightening, really. It's frightening. But I believe that us sitting here tonight, thinking and talking on these things, I believe it's later than we're thinking. I believe it's later than we're thinking. Because he said, man, like we said last night, man is always praising God for what he has done, what he's going to do, and ignoring what he's doing. He comes in such a simple way that you think, well, I thought this to happen, I thought that's to happen. He said, it's already happened. The ministry of the Lord was overlooked. They never realized who he was until he was gone. They didn't realize who he was. Even the Romans had to acknowledge, they said, well, truly he was the Son of God after they crucified him. If you follow the titles of his message, I said this on my tape, you'll hear it on the tape. But if you follow just the titles of his message, it means something. The titles that he put on the true message. And the message is lean not to your own understanding. See, if Sarah and Abraham would have, either one of them could have said, there's no way we could have a child. As far as science, medical science, everything was gone. You talk to people today and they say, well, I know Brother Branham said he'd do this, or but how can he? He's gone. They don't have a thing to do with it. See, if you lean to your understanding, he's gone. But he said, don't you do that. What is faith? Faith is the substance of something hoped for and the evidence of things that you cannot see. And I believe if this third pull had been brought right out in the open, Satan would have done, look what he done to the first pull and the second pull, and you can imagine what he would have done to the third but he said it's not even spoken. See, because you can make up your mind, like you've heard Brother Branham say it. You purpose in your heart that you're going to do something, you watch. Satan will block every crevice and try to stop you. Every time you go to do something for him, Satan don't like that. He'll do his best to stop it. And this Brother Branham said himself, he said, this third pull is so sacred. He said, I'll speak of a fold of it, and I'll just leave it right there. But he said the third pull will not be used until the squeeze is handed down from the council. And it's easy to follow this message when you take the easy route, you got all the signs and the miracles and all like that. But when those days are over, then there's nothing there to attract you, and you have to go on exactly go back to Noah. Noah had a revelation in his heart, and he didn't get that out of the science. Science didn't bring that to him. Education didn't bring that to him. He got that from a revelation. And when God reveals this message to a person, makes it real to you, and you see it in the Word and see it vindicated, then if a prophet speaks it, that's God speaking. And heavens and earth will pass away, or that's got to come to pass, just the way you said it. How can God say something and say, well, I made a mistake? He don't do it that way. He never has done it that way. He just speaks it. And as a rule, it's a paradox. It's something that's incredible, but yet it comes to pass. All those fellows up there in Colorado, when they was there and Brother Branham spoke to that storm, Brother Wheeler said that he's one of the deacons. And he was out there and just kind of thought he'd go down to the spring or down to the stream there. And he said he started walking and he heard somebody running behind him. It was Brother Branham. He said, wait, Brother Branham, Brother Wheeler, and I'll go with him. When they got down there away from all the other fellers, Brother Branham said to him, Brother Wheeler said, them fellers not getting that. And he said, said Brother Branham, I'm sure they are aware that something supernatural is going on. He said, no. He said, they're not getting it. And they was trying so hard to understand what he was doing. But you see, that took place, and that was history. To me, that was history repeating again. Joshua himself, after Moses had failed, Moses brought the people up out of bondage and was ready to cross the Jordan. And then Joshua was commissioned to carry them across, and he was in a battle, tremendous battle, and he was running out of time. And Brother Branham said this. He said, an ordinary man walked out there and said, son, stand still. What did he do? It obeyed him. You say, well, an ordinary man done that? Yeah. Exactly what happened. Brother Branham said that sun stood there at the space of a whole day. And the Bible says there's never been a day like that before or since. That a man, ordinary man, but see, that wasn't Joshua, he done that. It's the same thing when Brother Branham said, let there be, and a squirrel come out there on him. That wasn't Brother Branham, that was God speaking that through Brother Branham. He had to have a man to speak that through. So that's simplifying it, but anyhow, that's, to me, that's the way I understand it. And I believe that when Brother Branham walked out there and spoke to that storm, and those clouds went back to their places like that, nobody understood it. There was people in gas stations, and everyone said it was the funnest thing. Said they predicted a storm, and said, boy, when they predict a storm like in here, you better take cover. And he said, excuse me, said that everything went back. The clouds went back. Everything. Can you turn it off just a second?
Yes.